My name is Kenneth Farrow. I'm 57 years old, and for 5 years, I quietly paid for a life I was never invited to live. On Mother's Day, I was sitting in my truck in the driveway of the house I've owned for 22 years, trying to decide if I was hungry enough to go inside when I opened Facebook. I don't use it for much. My wife, Rosalind, set up my account back in 2016, and I log in maybe twice a month to see pictures of the grandkids. The photo loaded slowly. A long table at Burwood, the farm-to-table place that does Sunday brunch with the $18 mimosas. My son, my daughter-in-law, both grandkids, and my daughter-in-law's whole family. Her mother, her aunt, cousins I've met twice. And in the center seat, wearing a gold paper crown and a sash that read Grandpa of the Year, my daughter-in-law's father, Hector. I counted the people in the photo. 14. Then I counted the chairs. 14 seats. Not one empty. Last year, my daughter-in-law had at least texted me at 6:30 that evening. Asterisk crazy day. Hope you had a good one. Asterisk this year, nothing. I checked to make sure my ringer was on. It was. Let me take you back to where this started. Rosalind died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 7 weeks from diagnosis to the end. She was the one who kept track of everything. Birthdays, school events, who needed what. When she died, I didn't know what to do with myself. The mortgage supplement started 6 months after she passed. My son called me on a Saturday and said he'd found a house. For bedrooms, good school district. He didn't ask me directly. He said he was just talking through the numbers, the way I'd done at his age, while my own father silently calculated what he could afford to give. I told him I'd put in $1, $500 a month for 2 years while they got settled. That was 5 years ago. The 2 years became 5. Neither of us ever brought it up again. The car payment came later. My daughter-in-law's lease was up. Her credit had taken a hit. I co-signed on the SUV and set up autopay, $580 a month. Then the after-school programs for both kids for $120 a month. After she mentioned once that they might not be able to keep both kids enrolled. Then the education fund, $1,000 a month split into 529s, one for each grandchild. Started the week my grandson EMTT was born. My friend Irv does my books. Has for years, in exchange for help cleaning out his garage twice a year, which remains the best arrangement I've ever made. Last October, he laid out my spending in a grid on his kitchen table and circled a number. You know what this adds up to in a year? $37,800. And that's just the recurring transfers. That's not counting the down payment, the car deposit, Christmas, EMTT's dental work. Your retirement's pushed back to 64 now. You understand that? I understood. I'd moved it twice already, once when I co-signed the SUV, once when I added the after-school programs. I hadn't told anyone. Rosalind was gone by then, and there was nobody else to tell. What are you going to do? He asked. I told him I was still thinking. That was a lie. The day after Mother's Day, I drove to my son's house. My granddaughter, May, answered the door, yelled something over her shoulder, and ran off. She's 6. I don't take it personally. What I took personally was the hallway. They'd redone the photo wall. There used to be a picture of me in the hospital, holding EMTD 20 minutes after he was born, Rosalind's hand on my shoulder. It was gone. In its place, Hector at the pumpkin patch with May on his shoulders. Hector teaching EMTT to fish. Hector at Christmas morning, both kids climbing over him. 14 frames. Not one had me in it. EMTT came sliding down the hallway in his socks. Hey, Kenny. 9 years old, happy to see me, no meanness in it anywhere. You used to call me Grandpa, I said. He shrugged. Mom said Grandpa is for Grandpa Hector. She said it's more respectful to him. May came around the corner, dragging a blanket. Her whole face lit up. Grandpa Ken. EMTT, without looking up. It's just Kenny. May stopped, looking between us, waiting for someone to tell her which one was right. I crouched down. My knees don't love that anymore. You call me whatever feels right. I told her, but I want you to know who I am. Okay, Grandpa Ken, she said, and went back to dragging her blanket. I sat in the truck in that driveway for 12 minutes. I did not cry. Then I drove to the one person I always eventually drive to, my sister Eloise, 20 minutes out on Route 7. She keeps cats I don't know the names of, and grows tomatoes she has to give away. I told her about the photo, the crown, the sash. She listened, then got up and came back with a folded piece of paper. A screenshot from my son's Facebook page, which I don't follow. A family portrait on a front porch. My son, daughter-in-law, both kids, Hector and his wife. Caption, asterisk grateful for the family that shows up every day. Asterisk dated 4 months before that Mother's Day brunch. You weren't forgotten, Eloise said. You were reassigned. Here's the question I keep coming back to, she added. If they'd already decided where you stood by February, why were they still cashing your checks in May? I didn't have an answer. That Saturday, I call my son. Darren, what does EMTD call me now? The background noise, a game, someone laughing, kept going for 3 seconds. Don't make this weird, Dad. He's a kid. He didn't ask what I meant. He didn't ask who told me. He said, don't make this weird. You only defend something you already know is there. He let the call drop before I could answer. I opened the banking app. The only light on was the one over the stove. I did it in order, the way you work a punch list. Mortgage supplement, canceled. SUV payment, canceled. After-school programs, canceled. And I called the tutoring center Monday morning to make sure the final statement came to my address only. The education fund I did not touch. That money was never for their parents. Tuesday morning, I drove to my credit union and moved both 529 accounts into custodial accounts with me as sole trustee. Same kids, same beneficiaries, same $1,000 a month. Different lock on the door. Then I wrote my son a letter on a legal pad and mailed it, because a letter can't be deleted at a stoplight. I told him the transfers had stopped, that the education accounts were safe and growing, and that I'd show him the statements anytime he asked. I told him, asterisk, I'm still your kid's grandfather. I'm just not your bank anymore. Asterisk, nobody called me for 19 days. They were some of the best 3 weeks I'd had since Rosalind got sick. I took a consulting job I'd been putting off. I replaced the water heater. I had lunch with an old friend I hadn't seen in 4 years. Every night, I checked my phone. Nothing. On day 17, I made the mistake of checking my son's Facebook. My daughter-in-law had posted a video of a brand new range hood, the kind that runs about $800 installed, the month after I'd stopped the mortgage supplement. On the 1st of the next month, my phone rang at 8:12 a.m. Dad, something's wrong with the bank. The mortgage payment didn't clear. There's nothing wrong with the bank, I said. I stopped the transfer. I'm allowed to. Then my daughter-in-law's voice, calm in a rehearsed way. Ken, let's take a breath here. We have a payment that didn't go through, and we need to understand the plan. Not what did we do? The plan. Like I was a contractor who'd missed a deadline. Then she said the thing she shouldn't have said. Are you really going to do this to EMTT in May over brunch? I let that sit for 4 seconds. The kids' education money didn't stop, I said. Both accounts are still funded and growing. Custodial accounts at Westfield Credit Union. I'll send you the numbers today. The mortgage supplement, the car payment, and the after-school billing. Those are done. You don't have the authority. The car is in my name. That ends now. My son came back on. Dad, come on. After everything, I said. What? He didn't answer. I hung up. My hands were steady. Doing the right thing doesn't feel good. It just feels finished. 2 weeks later, Hector's wife called. The first time in maybe 2 years. She talked around it, then got to it. Hector's 65th birthday party. The VFW Hall, 100 people. And, of course you're invited, Ken. You're part of this family. She meant it kindly. That's the thing about a woman like her. She'd never said a cruel word out loud, and she'd just described me in a way that had taken 5 years to build and 30 seconds to deliver. 3 days before the party, Hector showed up at my door with a six-pack. No warning. Mother's Day, he said. You weren't there. I wasn't invited. That's not what I was told. Tricia said you didn't like crowds. Said it again at the table. I pulled up my message history with my daughter-in-law and handed him the phone. Mother's Day this year. Nothing. Last year, nothing. Thanksgiving, nothing. He scrolled a long time in silence. That sash, he finally said. I didn't pick it out. It was already on my chair. I put it on because 50 people were looking at me. He shook his head. I've got 12 grandkids across 3 daughters. Not one of them ever chose me over somebody else. I was just the one who got handed the napkin. At the door, he turned back. Come Saturday. Sit down. I'll handle where. The VFW hall smelled like wood polish and old carpet. I was 3 steps inside when Hector crossed the room, shook my hand in front of everybody, and held it a beat longer than a handshake needs. Kenneth, good. You're up front. He walked me the length of the hall to a seat at the head table, right beside his own. His wife looked down at her printed seating chart, then at me, then at her husband. She set it face down and didn't say a word. EMTT came running over. Kenny, how can we get a sit at the good table? Hector answered before I could, not lowering his voice. Because that's your grandfather's seat, EMTT. He's your grandpa on your mom's side. You got 2. That's something most kids don't get. EMTT considered this for about 2 seconds. Okay, he said, and went to find the bread table. 15 minutes into dinner, Hector's son-in-law Alex stood up with his glass. He's 34, says exactly what he means. I want to say something before the speeches start. There's a man at this table who has been showing up for this family quietly for a long time. I only found out recently just how quietly. He looked right at me, then sat down. The room did what rooms do when something can't be taken back. My daughter-in-law stared at her brother. My son went still. Hector leaned toward me. You want to say something? I stood up. My name is Kenneth Farrow. I'm Darren's father and EMTT and May's grandfather. I've been paying the mortgage supplement on my son's house for 5 years. The note on the SUV for 2.5. I funded both after-school programs my grandkids have been in since preschool. I paused. Last month, I stopped 3 of those. The 4th, the education accounts, is still running. That one's for the kids, not anybody else. I looked at Hector. I wasn't invited to Mother's Day. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone about that. I just needed to be in the room once, instead of only in the account. Hector made sure I had a seat tonight. That meant something to me. I sat down. For seconds of silence. Then Alex started clapping, and most of the room followed, not wild. Just the sound of 100 people quietly deciding something. I left before the cake. My daughter-in-law caught me in my truck, arms crossed, no tears this time. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. I said my name and what's true, I said. If the true part is humiliating, that's not something I did to you. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I told him to call you Kenny, she finally said. It was easier than explaining, every time, why he had 2 grandpas calling him the same thing. Them or the family group texts she wasn't on, the holiday traditions she'd married into and couldn't renegotiate. The way my son had once told her, carefully, that if she kept prioritizing her own side of the family, they'd need a bigger conversation. And mentioned his cousin who does family law. Are we okay? She asked. Not yet, I said, but we're in the right place to start. I handed her an envelope from my dash. Both 529 account numbers, balances, the credit union's direct line. You don't need my permission for anything on that page. 3 weeks later, Hector called on a Sunday morning. He and his wife had had the worst fight of their 30 years. She's not going to apologize. She thought she was protecting her daughter. She doesn't believe she took anything from you. I can't fix what my daughter built over 5 years, but I can fix where people sit at my own table. He mentioned a fishing boat he used maybe 3 times a year. A crime what I don't do with that boat. I told him I'd bring the coffee. That's how I ended up with a friend at 57, which I genuinely stopped expecting to happen at my age. Darren came by about 2 months after the party. No excuses this time. He admitted he'd let the photo wall change gradually rather than argue about it, and that he'd known what EMTT was calling me and hadn't corrected it. I read him 4 things. The education accounts stay with me as custodian. Statements available anytime. I take both kids every other Wednesday, no exceptions. My name goes on the calendar before the reservation is made, not after. And I don't lend money again. Not for emergencies, not for anything. If there's a real problem, we figure out together, but the transfers are done. It's not generous, he said. Generous is what I was doing. I told him. This is just what's true. I spent 5 years getting those confused. It's been 14 months since that photo loaded on my phone in the driveway. The education accounts crossed $94,000 in May. I still put in $1,000 on the first of every month, and Irv stopped asking about my retirement timeline. I know the number, and I'm at peace with it. EMTT and May are at my house every other Wednesday. Homework first, then the garage. He calls me Grandpa now, has for about 11 months, and never once mentions calling me anything else. May never stopped. Darren and Tricia separated for a few months over the winter. They're back together now. I haven't asked for details. There are doors you let a person walk through at their own pace. Hector and I fish the first Saturday of every month. He brings terrible decaf. He told me once, out on the water, that he'd had no idea what his daughter had been doing. Not the transfers, not the photo wall, not the name. He confronted her about it. It didn't go well. Trying was the least I owed you, he said. This past Mother's Day, I was sitting in my truck again, wondering whether to go in and make breakfast when my phone rang. Video call. EMTT's face filled the screen. Grandpa, Mom said you could come if you wanted. May made you something. I was there in 11 minutes. 6 of us at the kitchen table. My son, my daughter-in-law, both kids, Hector, who came in the back door carrying a pie he'd made himself, and me. There was a card on my plate, construction paper, crooked crayon flowers. Inside, in May's handwriting, asterisk Grandpa Ken, I leave you the end. Asterisk my chair was at the end closest to the kitchen door. The seat Rosalind used for 31 years. There was a card on it, and the name on it was right. I thought a lot about the difference between that table and the photo I saw 14 months ago. It isn't the food or the restaurant or how many people showed up. It's that somebody counted, and when they counted, I was in the number. Here's what I know now that I didn't before. You don't need to be at the center of the table. Most of us don't even want that. You just need to know there's a place, and that somebody wrote your name on it before you walked into the room. And if nobody's writing your name down, you're allowed to stop clearing the table for everyone else.